Today is the long-awaited return of the CloverTac Classroom series. We're going to be talking about shotgun chokes. So let's take it to the board.
I'm Tony Simon from the 2A4E podcast.
Hi, I'm Bella Farias. I'm an NRA Youth Shooting Sports Ambassador.
Roll call 219 here, and you're watching CloverTac.
And you're watching CloverTac.
And you're watching CloverTac.
What's up, crew? Welcome to the board here. And today we're going to have a little chat about shotgun chokes. Before we get to that, though, I want to thank you for watching, whatever platform you're watching on. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you're over on YouTube, make sure you click that bell notification as well. Now, the first thing we need to do is establish a baseline or a premise here for those that may not understand what a shotgun choke is. So if you're looking at the cross section of a shotgun barrel here, what a choke is basically is a device or a feature that, sort of like a funnel, constricts basically the flow of the shot through the muzzle end of the shotgun. Now, to my knowledge, there are 4 different types of chokes. The first type of choke you're going to see in a lot of single shot shotguns, maybe older shotguns, and that is a choke design that is more or less built into the barrel, and that is going to be a fixed choke. Now, the second type of choke is going to be a removable choke. This means is you're going to have threads in your barrel there on the muzzle end. You're going to have a choke, cylindrical, obviously in shape, that has the constriction in there and is also threaded. It's going to require a tool, looks something like this, obviously, to put it in, because when you screw this into the muzzle, it's going to fit flush with the end of the muzzle. Now, the perk of the removable choke over that fixed choke is that you can take these out and you can change the level of constriction here according to your need. Now, the third type of removable choke we're going to talk about is called an extended choke. And just as the name implies, it is extended. Still has threads, still screws into the end of the barrel, still available in multiple types of constriction, but it actually does not fit flush. It has a piece that is going to protrude from the end of the muzzle. Now, why would you need an extended choke? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, if you have a fixed choke or one that sits flush, a shot comes out the end of the muzzle here, you could actually nick the muzzle end of your shotgun. It's potentially an issue. The other reason has to do with the replacement, the removal, with changing them out. You can still use a tool as well on most extended chokes, but because you've got this extended part and the choke isn't up in the end of the barrel here, the muzzle end of the barrel, then you've got something you can actually grab a hold of and turn to get that out as well. So ease of removal, a little bit better if you're running an extended choke. Now, the fourth type of choke that I'm aware of, and if there's more chokes out there, maybe something I'm not mentioning here, I'm not aware of, by all means, there's a comment section below. Hit that comment section up. Let me know. Let's talk about it. But the fourth type of choke that I'm aware of is going to be basically a variation of that extended choke. It's going to be an extended choke that's also compensated. So it's going to have all the perks, basic designs of an extended choke, but the end of the choke that protrudes out the muzzle here, it's going to be ported somehow. Sometimes it's got little circles, sometimes it's got slot grooves in it, something like that. Can help with a couple of different things. Could be beneficial for recoil, and could also be beneficial for keeping that shotgun on target or getting it back on target more quickly, which is of course important if you're talking about sporting clays. You've ever seen them throw true doubles? That's when they throw two clays at one time. And yeah, you've got to get on those clays and knock those things out pretty quickly. So if you can reduce that recoil, reduce that potentially muzzle rise or anything like that, it's going to be beneficial. And so yeah, that's the purpose of the extended chokes that are compensated. So one thing we need to talk about now probably is the shot pattern. Very important before we get into the types of chokes and things like that. So we've got the end of our shotgun over here, and the way the shot pattern works is as the shot comes out of your shotgun barrel, it gets wider, obviously, over distance. Now the purpose of constricting that shot as much as possible, funneling that shot more or less, is you get way more of that shot in an area. As you get out here, it starts to spread out, and the pattern is a lot less dense the further away it gets. So therefore, the more you can constrict on this end, the more you can funnel it in on the muzzle end of the shotgun, the better pattern you're going to have over a longer distance. So just to give you another example, let's say at 25 yards, this is your shot pattern. And then let's say this represents 40 yards. And it's the same thing. As you can see how much looser that is. So if you've got a clay within this pattern, obviously it's going to get hit by some of those shot. As that pattern opens up over distance, if you've got a clay, particularly flying sideways like I'm illustrating here, then you can see how it can actually be flying through the shot because the pattern is not dense enough. So if this was the case, if this is what you were getting, let's say again that's 25 yards, this is 40 yards, that's where paying attention to those chokes is going to come into play, because you could get a little more constriction in that choke, and then you could tighten up this pattern more. And in essence, break those clays. But there's also a danger too when it comes to having too tight of a pattern at a shorter distance. And the reason is you've got a much smaller area here. Okay? So what happens if the clay is here? If the clay is here? You've just missed it. Okay? So it's finding that happy medium between the, I guess it would be the circumference of the pattern as well as the density of the pattern. What we're going to be talking about here is choke constriction and optimal patterns. Now, this information can vary. It's based on my experience. It's a little bit general. So if there's anybody out there that has more information, would like to help out, would like to discuss that, throw it in the comments below, and let's do it. But typically, if you're between 10 and 20 yards, that's what you're going for. The optimal choke there probably is what they call the cylinder choke. If you're looking at 15 to about 25 yards, that's going to be the skeet choke. If you're pushing that out to about 20 to 30 yards, that's going to be called an improved cylinder. If you're, say, 25 to 35 yards, you've got a light modified. "30 to 40 yards, modified. 35 to 45 yards is an improved modified. 45 to 55 yards would be a full choke, and 50 to 60 yards would be an extra full choke. The cylinder choke here is going to have the least amount of constriction. Means it funnels less. The extra choke here has the most constriction. That means it really funnels that shot column into a really tight pattern. Let's talk about the commonality of chokes here. Just mentioned several different types. When we're dealing with older shotguns, or we're dealing with potentially cheaper shotguns, maybe single shot shotguns, something like that. Nowadays, and even back then, other than a modified or that full choke, you really don't see a fixed shotgun with anything else. Now, when we're talking about modern shotguns that utilize removable chokes, usually they ship with a few different chokes. Typically, you're going to get a cylinder choke. A lot of times you will actually get an improved cylinder choke, a modified, and a full. Sometimes you'll find companies that they may omit the improved cylinder. Sometimes you'll find companies that'll actually add a choke in here somewhere, usually in between cylinder and modified somewhere, and actually give you a set of 5. It varies, but typically you're going to get the cylinder, improved cylinder, modified, and full. Now let's talk here a second about chokes that are not included typically when you buy a shotgun. And the first one is going to be that skeet choke. And a skeet choke works really well, obviously, for shooting skeet. If you refer back to when we were talking about the distances a second ago, yeah, those distances line up almost perfectly with shooting on a skeet field. Now, the next one that is commonly not included is going to be the light modified. And I really like a light modified in some shooting sports situations with, say, sporting clays, and potentially some bird hunting situations as well. And then finally, your extra full choke typically is not included either. This, again, is going to be your maximum amount of constriction, great for something like, let's say, turkey hunting or something like that, where you need as much of that shot. You're talking about a big bird with a turkey, right? As much of that shot on target as you can possibly get. That's where the extra full comes into play. So when we're talking about chokes that are typically not included that I would recommend, skeet, light modified, and extra full are going to be, depending on the purpose, depending on what you're using that shotgun for. If it's a shooting sports shotgun as well as your hunting shotgun, then yeah, definitely all 3. If you don't hunt, then you may be able to omit the full. If all you do is hunt, then you may be able to omit the skeet. Let's take a look at this one more time. We've got our shotgun, and let's say that this is going to be, I'm not going to include all the chokes, but you should be able to get the idea here. Let's say we've got that cylinder choke. This is going to be how our pattern spreads over distance, right? Again, remember, if we tighten that up over distance, we don't have nearly as spread out of a pattern. So let's say that this is improved cylinder. If we tighten it up even more, then this could be maybe modified, and then if we tighten it up even more than that, that could be full. So hopefully this representation gives you, along with the other information we've talked about, a better idea of how chokes work. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, that's what the comments below are for. Throw them down there, and yeah, let's get those talked about. It's going to be it for this edition of CloverTac Classroom. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully there'll be a few more of these to come. I know we've kind of been slacking off with them, and hopefully you found it helpful. Thanks for watching. Till next time, don't forget to chain fire freedom.